Tell me.
The elementals are finished.
Hey, congratulations!
Thank you so much. I have spent the whole day wandering around the house bumping into things. Like, I don't know what to... Like, this morning, I only got out of bed because I remembered that Ytterbium and Erbium were supposed to have Swedish flags on them somewhere, and I hadn't done that. And I was like, oh, good, I've got something to paint. So I painted little flags, and then I was like, what do I paint? Like, I'm super happy, but I'm also...
It's post-project malaise.
It's not even malaise. It's more like shock. It's been 18 months since I haven't had an element to paint.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, every single day I've had art to do. Yeah. So, oh, you can't see him from over here. Oh. He's hidden. I shall show you Oganesson because... Jesus, this mic. Do 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 do. Whoa! I'm dropping you. I'm not trying to drop you.
That's all right.
This way. There we go. That is Oganesson.
Ooh, Oganesson. Junie, what do you think? He's really cool.
There we go. Now you can see him properly. But it was always a dragon representing death, wearing a mask and glowing because he's radioactive. Oh, and cyberpunk. So a cyberpunk masked radioactive glowing dragon. And I was like,
sure.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
Oh, yeah. It painted itself. It actually kind of did. It was spooky. And I'm glad it's not my turn to read because this mic is picking up my echo and I fucking hate it.
Yeah, no, it's my turn.
I will have to run upstairs because Abby and I moved on to 2 towers the other day.
You guys are going to finish way before you and I do.
Oh, yeah. He did want to... did I tell you about this? It was the funniest shit. I was reading to him the bit where they get shot at by orcs while they're on the river journey. And they row upstream a bit and then get to the west side. And then they're trying to find a path and stuff. And it's all very... not remotely narrative driving, but very reality driving. Like, that's the kind of shit that happens when you're on a wilderness journey and shit just goes wrong. And but I looked at him at that point and he had no idea. He's never been on a river. He doesn't know what a portage way is. So we had to take some of his toys and a blanket and make a model of the river. And I showed him what a portage way would be and how, they never found the head of the path, but they know where the path ends. And this is how it's shaped. And this is what it's like. And the light kind of went on behind his eyes. It was like, okay, now we can continue because he knows what's going on. And what's going on is our heroes are having a really miserable time trying to get out the river. In an incredibly realistic fashion that I've always loved.
I was going to, my hair's drying, as you can probably tell, and I was going to flip it upside down, but I have the very tip of 2 sets of claws gently against my knee, and it's like, don't move. And I'm like,
okay, ma'am.
I guess this is just going to dry however it dries, but there, I can do like a little.
There you go.
A little bit. There we
go. Little flippity flop.
Just trying to, keep it curly, but gonna do what it's gonna do.
Never dry it with a towel and you'll be fine.
Oh no, I don't, but there's many more steps than that.
Sure.
Okay, there's a small number more steps than that. It's not that many. But one of them is diffusing with a hairdryer, but I'm not going to do that while we're podcasting, obviously.
Right. I had so I think I told you last week that I wanted to reach out to people who would enjoy my artwork. So I reached out to people who are reptile and amphibian enthusiasts and to chemists, both online. I just tried to find groups of both. Derpetology group is full of the awesomest people who are enthusiastic, welcoming, knowledgeable, constantly posting fun stuff about lizards they own or have come across, or toads that live under their porch, or and they love the art. They think it's great. They're enjoying it very much. The chemists, no. Like, chemists aren't fun people. I don't know. I didn't know. Or at least
some of them must be, but yeah, maybe not chemists on Facebook.
Yeah, no. And if I'm wrong, interwebs, send me a link to fun chemists, because I was picturing, Bill Nye with the periodic table in his pocket and fun people like that. And no, these people don't want me to post my art. They have no interest in any of that. Like the moderators won't post my artwork, no matter how well I explain what it is I'm doing. They're like, nope. And I'm like, okay.
All right, screw you guys.
And where I got something like 300 comments and likes in Derpetology, I got the one thing they did let me post, because I led with, this is the chemical blah represented by blah, got one comment.
Clearly herpetologists are the people.
Herpetologists rock. And I'll find the fun chemists. I will yoink them out of the woodwork. But it's weird. And a bit of a depressing thought. Like, what if I did this thing for an entire group that doesn't give a shit?
I mean, there must be fun chemists.
Oh, yeah. I sure hope so.
There's this one chunk of hair in my eye. I'm sorry. I don't usually screw with my hair this much. Okay. Shall we read?
Indeed we shall. I'm trying to look for something to do. I could do a lot of things.
You could.
Jason, did I show you? Was the owl done last week?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yes,
I'll just do more Pizonki. The Pizonki is all spread out here, and I like it.
Excellent. All right. I will find our place.
It was... I feel like it was right at the end of the chapter. But I can't... yeah. Right at the beginning of the case of Master Samwise?
Yes. Yeah, because Sam hewed a last stroke at Shelob and then he fell to the ground.
Thus far, Gollum's plan had succeeded.
And yes, but after that, because that was at the beginning of the fight with Shelob.
No. Frodo was lying under the cliff. That much at least had succeeded, or whatever.
Yes. And then Sam goes and fights, and that's where we are. So Sam fell to the ground.
Yeah.
Shelob was, oh, wait, we read this bit a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I think we only read a little of it.
Yeah.
Shelob was gone, and whether she lay long in her lair, nursing her malice and her misery, and in slow years of darkness healed herself from within, no chords. Rebuilding her clustered eyes until with hunger like death she spun once more her dreadful snares in the glens of the mountains of shadow. This tale does not tell.
Yeah. That's a funny line too. Like, oh,
Sam was left alone. Wearily, as the evening of the nameless land fell upon the place of battle, he crawled back to his master. "Master, dear master," he said, but Frodo did not speak. As he had run forward, eager, rejoicing to be free, Shelob with hideous speed had come behind and with one swift stroke had stung him in the neck. He lay now pale, and heard no voice, and did not move. "Master, dear master," said Sam, and through a long silence waited, listening in vain. Then, as quickly as he could, he cut away the binding cords and laid his head upon Frodo's breast into his mouth, but no stir of life could he find, nor feel the faintest flutter of the heart. Often he chafed his master's hands and feet and touched his brow, but all were cold. "Frodo, Mr. Frodo," he called, "don't leave me here alone. It's your Sam calling. Don't go where I can't follow. Wake up, Mr. Frodo. Oh, wake up, Frodo, me dear, wake up!" Then anger surged over him. He ran about his master's body in a rage, stabbing the air and smiting the stones and shouting challenges. Presently he came back, and bending, looked at Frodo's face, pale beneath him in the dusk. And suddenly he saw that he was in the picture that was revealed to him in the mirror of Galadriel and Lorien. Frodo, with a pale face, lying fast asleep under a great dark cliff. Or fast asleep, he had thought then. "He's dead," he said. "Not asleep. Dead." And as he said it, as if the words had set the venom to its work again, it seemed to him that the hue of the face grew livid green. And then black despair came down on him, and Sam bowed to the ground and drew his gray hood over his head, and night came into his heart, and he knew no more. One moment. Let's let that sink in while I make sure the cat's not destroying anything.
Good plan. The sequel to The Hobbit, everybody. Yes, lightweight and
Yes, hello.
yeah. A fun
It was-
romp.
Hmm?
A fun romp.
A fun romp. Yes. The cat was right behind me, and she gave me a very offended look, as if she had not already found a trapdoor in my bathroom that I didn't know existed, which I found out when I was looking for her, and she came out of it. But yes, no, she's completely innocent. Never caused any chaos in her life, much less than the last 24 hours. Anyways, okay.
Shameful of you to suggest otherwise.
What is wrong with me? When at last the blackness passed, Sam looked up and shadows were about him. But for how many minutes or hours the world had gone dragging on, he could not tell. He was still in the same place, and still his master lay beside him dead. The mountains had not crumbled, nor the earth fallen into ruin. "What shall I do? What shall I do?" he said. "Did I come all this way with him for nothing?" And then he remembered his own voice, speaking words that at the time he did not understand himself at the beginning of their journey. "I have something to do before the end. I must see it through, sir, if you understand." "But what can I do? Not leave Mr. Frodo dead, unburied on the top of the mountains and go home? Or go on?" "Go on," he repeated, and for a moment doubt and fear shook him. "Go on? Is that what I've got to do? Leave him?" Then at last he began to weep, and going to Frodo, he composed his body, and folded his cold hands upon his breast, and wrapped his cloak about him. And he laid his own sword at one side, and the staff that Faramir had given at the other. "If I'm to go on," he said, "then I must take your sword, by your leave, Mr. Frodo. But I'll put this one to lie by you, as it lay by the old king in the barrow. And you've got your beautiful mithril coat from old Mr. Bilbo. And your star glass, Mr. Frodo. You did lend it to me, and I'll need it, or I'll be always in the dark now." This is so sad.
Right? I'm choking up, and I even know what happens next, man.
I know. I'll need it for I'll be always in the dark now. Oh my God, Sam.
Fucking hell, Samwise. Why?
It's too good for me, and the lady gave it to you, but maybe she'd understand. Do you understand, Mr. Frodo? I've got to go on. But he could not go, not yet. He knelt and held Frodo's hand and could not release it. And time went by, and still he knelt, holding his master's hand, and in his heart keeping a debate. Now he tried to find strength to tear himself away and go on a lonely journey, for vengeance. If once he could go, his anger would bear him down all the roads of the world, pursuing, until he had him at last, Gollum. Then Gollum would die in a corner. That was not what he had set out to do. It would not be worthwhile to leave his master for that. It would not bring him back. Nothing would. They had better both be dead together. And that too would be a lonely journey. Sorry, you were saying?
It's funny how Samwise is going through like 3 or 4 different options that are like the basis of enormous quantities of literature. He's like, vengeance. No, vengeance is stupid. Despair. No, that's dumb too. like there would be no Shakespearean tragedies if everyone was as good at Sam as being like, I want to do this. No, I can't do that.
Sam is the hero of this story.
He fucking is.
He looked on the bright point of the sword. He thought of the places behind where there was a black brink and an empty fall into nothingness. There was no escape that way. That was to do nothing, not even to grieve. That was not what he had set out to do. What am I to do then? He cried again. And now he seemed plainly to know the hard answer. See it through. Another lonely journey, and the worst. What, me alone, go to the crack of doom and all? He quailed still, but the resolve grew. What, me take the ring from him? The council gave it to him. But the answer came at once. And the council gave him companions so that the errand should not fail. And you are the last of all the company. The errand must not fail. I wish I wasn't the last, he groaned. I wish old Gandalf was here or somebody. Why am I left all alone to make up my mind? I'm sure to go wrong. And it's not for me to go taking the ring, putting myself forward. But you haven't put yourself forward. You've been put forward. And as for not being the right and proper person, why, Mr. Frodo wasn't, as you might say, nor Mr. Bilbo. They didn't choose themselves. Ah well, I must make up my own mind. I will make it up. I'll be sure to go wrong. That'd be Sam Gamgee all over. Let me see now. If we're found here, or Mr. Frodo's found, and that thing's on him, well, the enemy will get it. And that's the end of all of us, of Lorien and Rivendell and the Shire and all. And there's no time to lose, or it'll be the end anyway. The war's begun, and more than likely things are all going the enemy's way already. No chance to go back with it and get advice or permission. No, it's sit here till they come and kill me over Master's body and gets it. Or take it and go. He drew a deep breath. Then take it is. He stooped. Very gently he undid the clasp at the neck and slipped his hand inside Frodo's tunic. Then with his other hand raising the head, he kissed the cold forehead and softly drew the chain over it. And then the head lay quietly back again in rest. No change came over the still face, and by that more than by all other tokens, Sam was convinced at last that Frodo had died and laid aside the quest. Jesus. Goodbye, Master, my dear. I know, he murmured. Forgive your Sam. Oh, it just gets worse. Okay, he'll come back to this spot when the job's done, if he manages it. And then he'll not leave you again. Rest you quiet till I come, and may no foul creature come anigh you. And if the lady could hear me and give me one wish, I would wish to come back and find you again. Goodbye." And then he bent his own neck and put the chain upon it, and at once his head was bowed to the ground with the weight of the ring, as if a great stone had been strung on him. But slowly, as if the weight became less or new strength grew in him, he raised his head, and then with a great effort got to his feet and found that he could walk and bear his burden. For a moment he lifted up the phial and looked down at his master, and the light burned gently now, with the soft radiance of the evening star in summer, and in that light Frodo's face was fair of hue again, pale but beautiful with an elvish beauty, as of one who is long past the shadows. And with the bitter comfort of that last sight, Sam turned and hid the light, and stumbled on into the growing dark. He had not far to go. The tunnel was some way behind, the cleft a couple of 100 yards ahead or less. The path was visible in the dusk, a deep rut worn in ages of passage, running now gently up in a long trough with cliffs on either side. The trough narrowed rapidly. Soon Sam came to a long flight of broad, shallow steps. Now the Orc Tower was right above him, frowning black, and in it the red eye glowed. Now he was hidden in the dark shadow under it. He was coming up to the top of the steps, and was in the cleft at last. "I've made up my mind," he kept saying to himself, but he had not. Though he had done his best to think it out, what he was doing was altogether against the grain of his nature. "Have I got it wrong?" he muttered. "What ought I to have done?" As the sheer sides of the cleft closed about him, before he reached the actual summit, before he looked at last on the path descending into the nameless land, he turned. For a moment, motionless in intolerable doubt, he looked back. He could still see, like a small blot in the gathering gloom, the mouth of the tunnel, and he thought he could see or guess where Frodo lay. He fancied there was a glimmer on the ground down there, or perhaps it was some trick of his tears, as he peered out at that high stony place where all his life had fallen in ruin. "If only I could have my wish, my one wish," he sighed, "to go back and find him." Then at last he turned to the road in front and took a few steps, the heaviest and the most reluctant he had ever taken. Only a few steps, and now only a few more, and he would be going down, and would never see that high place again. And then suddenly he heard cries and voices. He stood still as stone. Orc voices. They were behind him and before him, a noise of tramping feet and harsh shouts. Orcs were coming up the cleft from the far side, from some entry to the tower, perhaps. Tramping feet and shouts behind. He wheeled round. He saw small red lights, torches, winking away below there as they issued from the tunnel. At last the hunt was up. The red eye of the tower had not been blind. He was caught. Now the flicker of approaching torches and the clink of steel ahead was very near. In a minute they would reach the top and be on him. He had taken too long in making up his mind, and now it was no good. How could he escape, or save himself, or save the ring? The ring. He was not aware of any thought or decision. He simply found himself drawing out the chain and taking the ring in his hand. The head of the Orc company appeared in the cleft right before him. Then he put it on.
This bit has never made much sense to me. Like, why? Why does that work? My only thought is that Sauron deliberately wove a lot of spells around the mountains to cast confusion and darkness and all of that stuff, and so he's like, Sam's protected by those spells.
That, or like Shelob is such a sink of darkness in herself that nothing around her can really be sensed. She's like a interference field.
I like that. I'm going to go with that for my headcanon.
Me too. I will be right back. One moment.
Okie dokie. it may seem silly to do an R2D2 Pizonki since it's 90% white, and, I'll just have to be smearing a whole lot of wax all over this guy. But you know what? I'm not here to make sense. I never was. Not my job. I am here to paint eggs and chew bubblegum. And I don't even like bubblegum. I really don't know how this is going to look, though. Honestly, and there's always little tiny bits around the bottom of R2, and I'm like, I think we'll kind of skip those. Maybe not. Oh well, y'all will see how it turns out. Yo.
All right. Sam put on the ring.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. The world changed, and a single moment of time was filled with an hour of thought. At once he was aware that hearing was sharpened while sight was dimmed, but otherwise than in Shelob's lair. All things about him now were not dark but vague, while he himself was there in a gray, hazy world, alone, like a small black solid rock, and the ring weighing down his left hand was like an orb of hot gold. That's such an interesting image.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yee.
He did not feel invisible at all, but horribly and uniquely visible, and he knew that somewhere an eye was searching for him. He heard the crack of stone and the murmur of water far off in a Morgul vale, and down away under the rock the bubbling misery of Shelob groping, lost in some blind passage, and voices in the dungeons of the tower, and the cries of the orcs as they came out of the tunnel, and deafening, roaring in his ears, the crash of the feet and the rending clamor of the orcs before him. He shrank against the cliff, but they marched up like a phantom company, gray distorted figures in a mist, only dreams of fear with pale flames in their hands. And they passed him by. He cowered, trying to creep away into some cranny and to hide. He listened. The orcs from the tunnel and the others marching down had sighted one another, and both parties were now hurrying and shouting. He heard them both clearly, and he understood what they said. Perhaps the ring gave understanding of tongues, or simply understanding, especially of the servants of Sauron its maker, so that if he gave heed, he understood and translated the thought to himself. Certainly the ring had grown greatly in power as it approached the places of its forging, but one thing it did not confer, and that was courage. At present, Sam still thought only of hiding, of lying low till all was quiet again, and he listened anxiously. He could not tell how near the voices were. The words seemed almost in his ears. "Hola! Gorbag! What are you doing up here? Had enough of war already?" "Orders, you lubber! What are you doing, Shagrat? Tired of lurking up there, thinking of coming down to fight?" "Orders to you. I'm in command of this pass, so speak civil. What's your report?" "Nothing." "Hi! Aye! Yoy!" A yell broke into the exchanges of the leaders. The orcs lower down had suddenly seen something. They began to run. So did the others. "Aye! Hola! There's something lying right in the road. A spy! A spy!" There was a hoot of snarling horns and a babble of baying voices. With a dreadful stroke, Sam was wakened from his cowering mood. They had seen his master. What would they do? He had heard tales of the orcs that to make the blood run cold. It could not be borne. He sprang up. He flung the quest and all his decisions away, and fear and doubt with them. He knew now where his place was and had been, at his master's side, though what he could do there was not clear. Back he ran down the steps, down the path towards Frodo. How many are there, he thought. 30 or 40, from the tower at least, and a lot more than that from down below, I guess. How many can I kill before they get me? They'll see the flame of the sword as soon as I draw it. They'll get me sooner or later. I wonder if any song will ever mention it. How Samwise fell in the high pass and made a wall of bodies round his master. No, no song. Of course not, for the ring will be found, and there'll be no more songs. I can't help it. My place is by Mr. Frodo. They must understand that, Elrond and the Council, and the great lords and ladies with all their wisdom. Their plans have gone wrong. I can't be their ring-bearer, not without Mr. Frodo. And this is why self-esteem is important, kids.
Although it works out fine, so...
True. If he had run away, things
Then-
would have been different.
Yeah. Oh, God. The freaking mouth of Sauron would have had Frodo to present to them all tortured and shit.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So I guess really the message here is that loyalty is important.
Loyalty is important. And, being chosen by fate or luck or destiny is also going to help.
That, but also knowing what destiny is choosing you for.
Yeah.
Sam is like, I know I have a part to play in all this, and I don't know what it is. And then he's like, oh no, my part is to be with Frodo.
Yeah. Which turns out to be the best.
But the orcs were out of his dim sight now. He had had no time to consider himself, but now he realized that he was weary almost to exhaustion. His legs would not carry him as he wished. He was too slow. The path seemed miles long. Where had they all got to in the mist? There they were again, a good way ahead still. A cluster of figures around something lying on the ground. A few seemed to be darting this way and that, bent like dogs on a trail. He tried to make a spurt. Come on, Sam, he said, or you'll be too late again. He loosened the sword in its sheath. In a minute he would draw it, and then there was a wild clamor, hooting and laughing, as something was lifted up the ground. Yahoy! Yahari hoy! Up! Up! Then a voice shouted, Now off! The quick way! Back to the Undergate! She'll not trouble us tonight by all the signs. A whole band of orc figures began to move. 4 in the middle were carrying a body high on their shoulders. Yahoy! They had taken Frodo's body. They were off. He could not catch them up.
You can hear it in Snow White version. Yahoy!
That's just, it's everything about that is upsetting. Happy kill, 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 let me kill, 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 let me kill the whole day through.
To kill is what we like to do.
In a mine. Sorry, that's the Moria orcs.
Anyway.
Let's see. Still he labored on. The orcs reached the tunnel and were passing in. Those with the burden went first, and behind them there was a good deal of struggling and jostling. Sam came on. He drew the sword, a flicker of blue in his wavering hand, but they did not see it. Even as he came panting up, the last of them vanished into the black hole. For a moment he stood, gasping, clutching his breast. Then he drew his sleeve across his face, wiping away the grime and sweat and tears. Curse the filth, he said, and sprang after them into the darkness. It no longer seemed very dark to him in the tunnel. Rather, it was as if he had stepped out of a thin mist into a heavier fog. His weariness was growing, but his will hardened all the more. He thought he could see the light of torches a little way ahead, but try as he would, he could not catch them up. Orcs go fast in tunnels, and this tunnel they knew well, for in spite of Shelob, they were forced to use it often as the swiftest way from the dead city over the mountains. In what far-off time the main tunnel in the great round pit had been made, where Shelob had taken up her abode in ages past, they did not know. But many byways they had themselves delved about it on either side, so as to escape the lair in their goings to and fro on the business of their masters. Tonight they did not intend to go far down, but were hastening to find a side passage that led back to their watchtower on the cliff. Most of them were gleeful, delighted with what they had found and seen, and as they ran they gabbled and yammered after the fashion of their kind. Sam heard the noise of their harsh voices, flat and hard in the dead air, and he could distinguish 2 voices from among all the rest. They were louder and nearer to him. The The captains of the two parties seemed to be bringing up the rear, debating as they went. Can't you stop your rabble making such a racket, Shagrat? Grunted the one. We don't want Shelob on us. Go on, Gorbag. Yours are making more than half the noise, said the other. Let the lads play. No need to worry about Shelob for a bit, I reckon. She sat on a nail, it seems. We shan't cry about that. Didn't you see? A nasty mess all the way back to that cursed crack of hers? If we've stopped it once, we've stopped it 100 times. So let 'em laugh. And we've struck a bit of luck at last. Got something that Lugburs wants. I have no idea what this accent is, but we're going with it. Lugburs wants it, eh? What is it, do you think? Elvish it looked to me, but undersized. What's the danger in a thing like that? Don't know till we've had a look. Oh, so they haven't told you what to expect? They don't tell us all they know, do they? Not by half. But they can make mistakes, even the top ones can. Shh, Gorbag. Shagrat's voice was lowered, so that even with his strangely sharpened hearing, Sam could only just catch what was said. They may, but they've got eyes and ears everywhere. Some among my lot as like as not. There's no doubt about it, they're troubled about something. The Nazgul down below are, by your account. The Lugburs is, too. Something nearly slipped. Nearly, you say, said Gorbag. All right, said Shagrat. We'll talk of that later. Wait till we get to the underway. There's a place there where we can talk a bit while the lads go on. Shortly afterwards, Sam saw the torches disappear. Then there was a rumbling noise, and just as he hurried up, a bump. As far as he could tell, as far as he could guess, the orcs had turned and gone into the very opening which Frodo and he had tried and found blocked. It was still blocked. There seemed to be a great stone in the way, but the orcs had got through somehow, for he could hear their voices on the other side. They were still running along, deeper and deeper into the mountain, back towards the tower. Sam felt desperate. They were carrying off his master's body for some foul purpose, and he could not follow. He thrust and pushed at the block, and he threw himself against it, but it did not yield. Then, not far inside, or so he thought, he heard the two captains' voices talking again. He stood still listening for a little, hoping perhaps to learn something useful. Perhaps Gorbag, who seemed to belong to Minas Morgul, would come out, and he could then slip in. No, I don't know, said Gorbag's voice. The messages go through quicker than anything could fly, as a rule. I don't inquire how it's done. Safest not to. Ugh, those Nazgul give me the creeps. And they skin the body off you soon as look at you, leave you all cold in the dark on the other side. He likes 'em. They're his favorites nowadays, so it's no use grumbling. I tell you, it's no game serving down in the city. You should try being up here with Shelob for company, said Shagrat. I'd like to try somewhere where there's none of 'em. But the war's on now, and when that's over, things may be easier. It's going well, they say. They would, grunted Gorbag. We'll see. But anyway, if it does go well, there should be a lot more room. What do you say? If we get a chance, you and me'll slip off and set up somewhere on our own with a few trusty lads. Somewhere there's good loot nice and handy and no big bosses. Ah, said Shagrat, like old times. Yay!
Right?
It had to be said.
Yeah.
I feel like they're like not exactly exes, but not exactly still together, you know? One of those wartime things.
Yeah, definitely. There's a history with these two.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Yes.
happens later is a sort of lover's tiff.
Well, but not really lovers. I mean, orcs don't really have lovers. It's more just like a
Tiff.
a
Generic tiff.
falling out of fuck buddies, one might say.
There we go.
I've upset myself. Yes, said Gorbag, but don't count on it. I'm not easy in my mind. As I said, the big bosses, his voice sank almost to a whisper, even the biggest, can make mistakes. Something nearly slipped, you say. I say something has slipped. And we've got to look out. Always the poor Uruks to put slips right, and small things. But don't forget, the enemies don't love us any more than they love him. And if they get topsides on him, we're done too. But see here, when were you ordered out? About an hour ago, just before you saw us. A message came. Nazgul uneasy, spies feared on stairs. Double vigilance, patrolled the head of stairs. I came at once. Bad business, said Gorbag. See here. Our silent watchers were uneasy more than 2 days ago, that I know. My patrol wasn't ordered out for another day, nor any message sent to Lugburs either, owing to the great signal going up and the high Nazgul going off to war and all that. And then they couldn't get Lugburs to pay attention for a good while, I'm told. Yes, communication issues are a way that wars are frequently won.
Thank goodness.
The eye was busy elsewhere, I suppose, said Shagrat.
I always picture these two sharing a cigarette while they have this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in my mind, Gorbag is like kind of short and squat, and Shagrat's kind of long and skinny. Really, in my mind, they're like a Sergeant Colin and Nobby Nobbs a little bit.
Yeah. Only, extreme.
Yes.
Very unpleasant.
Yes. Let's see. The eye was busy elsewhere, I suppose, said Shagrat. Big things going on away west, they say. I dare say, growled Gorbag. But in the meantime, enemies have got up the stairs. And what were you up to? You're supposed to keep watch, aren't you? Special orders or no? What are you for? That's enough. Don't try and teach me my job. We were awake all right. We knew there were funny things going on. Very funny. Yes, very funny. Lights and shouting and all. But Shelob was on the go. My lads saw her in her sneak. Her sneak? What's that? You must have seen him. Little thin black fellow like a spider himself, or perhaps more like a starved frog. He's been here before. Came out of Lugburs the first time, years ago. We had word from high up to let him pass. He's been up the stairs once or twice since then, but we've left him alone. Seems to have some understanding with her ladyship. I suppose he's no good to eat. She wouldn't worry about words from high up. But a fine guard you keep in the valley. He was up here a day before all this racket. Early last night we saw him. Anyway, my lads reported that her ladyship was having some fun. That seemed good enough for me until the message came. I thought her sneak had brought her a toy, or that you'd perhaps sent her a present. A prisoner of war or something. I don't interfere when she's playing. Nothing gets by Shelob when she's on the hunt. Nothing, say you? Didn't you use your eyes back there? I tell you, I'm not easy in my mind. Whatever came up the stairs did get by. Cut her web and got clean out of the hole. That's something to think about. Oh, well, but she got him in the end, didn't she? Got him? Got who? This little fellow? But if he was the only one, then she'd have had him off to her larder long before, and there he'd be now. And if Lugburs wanted him, you'd have to go and get him. Nice for you. But there was more than one. At this point, Sam began to listen more attentively and pressed his ear against the stone. Who cut the cords she'd put round him, Shagrat? Same one as cut the web. Didn't you see that? And who stuck a pin into her ladyship? Same one, I reckon. And where is he? Where is he, Shagrat? Shagrat made no reply. You may well put your thinking cap on if you've got one. It's no laughing matter. No one has ever stuck a pin in Shelob before, as you should know well enough. There's no grief in that. But think, there's someone loose hereabouts as is more dangerous than any other damned rebel that has ever walked since the bad times, since the great siege. Something has slipped. And what is it then? Growled Shagrat. By all the signs, Captain Shagrat. This is about to be my favorite part of this conversation. I'd say there's a large warrior loose, elf most likely, with an elf sword anyway, and an axe as well, maybe. And he's loose in your bounds, too, and you've never spotted him. Very funny indeed, Gorbag spat. Sam smiled grimly at this description of himself.
Fucking love that.
Giant, scary elf warrior, very dangerous, heavily armed,
Yeah.
and the hobbit on the other side's like, go
Yep.
on.
Got a sword and an axe.
Giant, tall.
Yep.
Ah, well,
Oh, hell yeah.
You always did take a gloomy view, said Shagrat. You can
Yeah,
read
see?
the
History.
You can read the signs how you like, but there may be other ways to explain them. Anyhow, I've got watchers at every point, and I'm going to deal with one thing at a time. When I've had a look at the fellow we have caught, then I'll begin to worry about something else. It's my guess. You won't find much in that little fellow, said Gorbag. He may have had nothing to do with the real mischief. The big fellow with the sharp sword doesn't seem to have thought of mirth much anyhow. Just left him lying. Regular elvish trick.
There's some
We'll see.
propaganda at work up in there.
I mean, isn't there always?
Mm-hmm.
Come on now, we've talked enough. Let's go and have a look at the prisoner. What are you going to do with him? Don't forget I spotted him first. If there's any game, me and my lads must be in it. Now, growled Shagrat. I have my orders, and it's more than my belly's worth, or yours, to break 'em. Any trespasser found by the guard is to be held at the tower. Prisoner is to be stripped. Full description of every article, garment, weapon, letter, ring, or trinket is to be sent to Lugburs at once, and to Lugburs only. And the prisoner is to be kept safe and intact under pain of death for every member of the guard until he sends or comes himself. That's plain enough. That's what I'm going to do. Stripped, eh? Said Gorbag. What? Teeth, nails, hair, and all? I know, right? No, none of that. He's for Lugburs, I tell you. He's wanted safe and whole. You'll find that difficult, laughed Gorbag. It's nothing but carrion now. What Lugburs will do with such stuff, I can't guess. You might as well go in the pot. You fool, snarled Shagrat. You've been talking very clever, but there's a lot you don't know, though most other folk do. You'll be for the pot or for Shelob if you don't take care. Carrion? Is that all you know of her ladyship? When she binds with cords, she's after meat. She doesn't eat dead meat, nor suck cold blood. This fellow isn't dead.
Woohoo!
Woo! Okay.
And it's after 8 o'clock.
And it's after 8 o'clock, but I was not going to stop until we got to that point.
Right? I thought, once again, it's a situation where the book is so much more detailed, so fun to read, so much fun to follow along with, but I thought it was very clever when they made the movie to skip the choices of Master Samwise and do a fake out.
Mm-hmm.
With Frodo in the tower thinking the necklace has been taken by orcs, and we think that too. Well,
yeah.
Anyone unfamiliar? Oh no! Okay. I keep forgetting I did that.
What?
Okay, so this is covered with some thinking putty that someone handled with food on their hands, so it smells like cheese. So I spread it out on here, except I keep forgetting I did that because it's blue on blue. I should have thought that through. It smells okay now, so I could probably put it back in its little container, but I did that once before, let it sit out till the smell had dissipated, and then I stuck it back in its container, and it almost immediately smelled like cheese again, and I was like...
I feel like it's possible that you're not going to get the smell of cheese out of putty.
If I did, though, it would be this way. Spread it out super thin, like really, really thin. Let it off gas for months, and then forget that it's here, and then accidentally put stuff in it all the time. I dropped a tissue in it and had to throw away some of the putty at one point because it sort of engulfed it. It's a fun time had by all.
Sounds like it. All right. Well, I will see you next Monday.
Yay!
Keep you posted on the progress of the princess back there.
Yes, do. Yeah, post lots and lots of pictures. You know, the internet does better. It's just is a better place with kitty pictures.
I have so many pictures already. It's been like 24 hours. It hasn't even been that long. I have so many pictures.
That's what you're supposed to be when you're a fur mama. Parent. Human. I love you.
I love you too.
Cuidado.
Me amas.